Good afternoon. Welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. Give me a second while I welcome our Spanish-speaking neighbors. Buenas tardes. Gracias por estar con nosotros esta tarde. Si quieren acceso al programa en español, por favor, marcan el número 425-436-6200. Otra vez, 425-436-6200. Cuando le contesten la llamada, por favor, compartan la contraseña, el código que aparece con el número empezando 6, que es 627-682. Thank you for being with us this May 8th, 2020, as we get ready to enter Mother's Day weekend, and we have lots happening on the show, on the forum today around that. My name is Tammy Rivera. I'm the Executive Director and Lead Organizer for Southside Organizing Center, SOC or SOC for you old schoolers who have an affinity with SOC. We have all of our staff available for you, and we have since the pandemic started. We haven't missed a day. You can still connect with us in all the ways that you have, except for in person, and we are looking forward to when we can do that again, hopefully when we're all safe and hopefully soon. You can reach us at our same phone number, 414-672-8090. You can email us at soc@socmilwaukee.org, and you can visit our website at www.socmilwaukee.org, where we have a whole page dedicated to information, resources, and ways you can take action regarding coronavirus responses. I want to remind you that our forum is still new in this venue, and we'd like to make sure that we're meeting your needs and that we're growing as we move along in this new way. So please do fill out the survey that we have for you at the end of each forum that lets us know if the information we provided was helpful to you, what's going good, what kinds of things can we do different or change or add. It's a simple 4-question survey. It literally doesn't take more than 5 minutes. And the best thing about it is that we do a daily drawing for a $25 gift certificate with those people who fill it out. And so it's a quick win for you all who are challenged, who are during this challenging time when folks need finances. And it's also a blessing to our local businesses because you get to choose which business you want your gift certificate from among those businesses in our area who have supported SOC or are doing an immensely big good deed during this time. So it's a win for everyone. It's a win for SOC, it's a win for you, and it's a win for small business. So please do cooperate. Today, I'll talk a little more about this when I'm done with this segment, but we have a special guest, Pedro Hernandez from Legal Aid Society. He'll be with us in a little while. And I want to remind you that today is the debut of the Mother's Day broadcast, the dedications that you all submitted about your mom who counts, i.e., who is doing the census. And Gabe will be on later to debut that those beautiful photos and messages. And we're so excited about some good things happening during this challenging time, right? Our moms. And then I want to remind you that Rob Smith, the chair of the Human Rights Commission for the county, is going to be here next week, Tuesday, and Congresswoman Moore is going to be with us on Wednesday. So please do stick around and visit with us at 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday here, and to hear the latest on what's going on with the coronavirus, with civic engagement, with programming, etc. Going to share a disclaimer. We create a venue for near Southside residents to have a voice, to have a vote, and to have a vehicle to organize. And so making those themes come to the surface amongst you all. We try to create a place for that, but we can't always sign on to all of those messages and don't always agree. That's the beauty of being individuals and having our own life experiences, that we leave room for that. So with that said, I just want to share that the views and opinions that are shared here aren't always those held by SOC, or it's not an opinion that SOC can express because of the type of organization we are. So just please know that, and let's welcome voices and try to decipher for ourselves what rings true and makes sense, and is we can confirm, and in those places where we fundamentally disagree, well, let's challenge each other to listen and to respect each other's differences as well. With that, I'd like to invite for our first segment of critical updates and a mix of critical updates, coronavirus, Pedro Hernandez of the Legal Aid Society, who's going to be with us talking about their services, evictions and foreclosures. Hola, Pedro.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Good. Hey, thank you for making the time and offering your services to the public by joining us here on our online community forum. We have a long tradition of doing forums in person, but we're learning along with other folks how to do that digitally. So we appreciate you making the efforts to be with us, Pedro.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you guys, very grateful that you're allowing us to be able to spread some good information out there to folks starting this time.
Yeah, so we've had a segment dedicated to the coronavirus information, resources, and action folks can take. And certainly the issue of the financial stress of the times, which affects people's ability to pay their mortgage or rent, is a top priority for folks. And we've shared, Taylor Herrada, our coronavirus coordinator, has shared some of the action from the state, the governor's office, and local about evictions and foreclosures. And we've shared other information and resources, but share with us what you know in regards to this topic. In general, what services you all offer in regards to this topic. And then if we have time, we'll dig into the rest of the services, because we know you do a lot of work. If we don't get to that all, we'll bring you back and continue the discussion. So share with us what you know, Pedro, about what's happening legally and regarding evictions and foreclosures.
For sure. Well, basically what I wanted to talk to you guys today about were three things concerning tenants' rights during the pandemic. I think first and foremost, I want to give people a little brief overview of the kinds of notices people might be getting or have been getting in terms of like evictions just generally, so that we all have a basic foundation on which to build from, where I can explain Governor Evers' order, the CARES Act, what does that mean for evictions and foreclosures, and then what are some more issues that arise from the pandemic and what you can do to protect your rights and assert your rights as a tenant during this pandemic. And if you're a landlord listening in, also what you can do in order to not violate the law. Just a reminder, this is just for general knowledge purposes for folks out there. This isn't legal advice. It's just something we have to say as lawyers so that people don't think I'm their personal lawyer too right now. So just a little brief overview, the most common kinds of notices people may be getting or may get in the future because of the pandemic are 5-day or 28-day notices. 5-day notices are for non-payments of rent or breaching some kind of provision of your lease or tenancy. You can cure these notices by paying within the 5 days or fixing that breach, the provision within those 5 days. If it's a 28-day notice, which happens for month-to-month tenants, the landlord can have any reason to evict you. It can't be retaliation though, but they have to give you the notice 28 days before the end of that month. For example, if starting in June, the landlord would have to give you a 28-day notice by June 2nd. because June ends on the 30th. If you think that if you have any questions or concerns about what kind of notices you've been receiving or the kinds of notices that you may be subject to, please contact an attorney like Legal Aid, because the kind of notice you can get depends on the kind of tenant you are. If you have a lease for a year, you can't get 28-day notices. So, and if you get like a 14-day notice or some other kind of notice, it'd be great for you to be able to contact an attorney. And all these kinds of notices are impacted by what I'm going to be talking to next, which is COVID-19 specific, which were the eviction moratoriums by Governor Evers at the state level, and then the CARES Act at the federal level. Under Governor Evers, this has probably been talked about by Taylor Herrera, but to just reiterate, if from our understanding from a legal perspective, it grants a temporary relief from evictions until May 26th. This order means that no tenant should be receiving notices for non-payment of rent or any other kinds of eviction notices unless the landlord can prove that by not starting an eviction, it will result in an imminent threat of harm, serious physical harm to another person. So evictions technically still can happen, but there will be reserved for cases like domestic violence or, again, those cases where imminent physical harm can happen. So if you've gotten a 5-day notice since in the past 60 days from May 26th to March 23rd, roughly, you should contact an attorney so that they can best help you resolve that issue that is likely in violation of the governor's order. This order also puts an end to foreclosures, which means that banks and other people that hold mortgages for homeowners out there, if they try to start a foreclosure, which means a legal action in court, that should be dismissed. So you should talk to an attorney. And it depends, again, when that foreclosure happened, but no foreclosure should be filed until after May 26th under at least Governor Evers' order. That becomes a little more complicated with the CARES Act, which President Trump signed on March 27th. It includes a 128-day moratorium on evictions for covered dwellings until July 25th, which is a Saturday. So no one's going to start an eviction on Saturday. They have this, the courts will accept new cases from Monday through Friday. So in effect until July 27th. But this only covers covered dwellings. Those cannot start evictions. According to the CARES Act at a federal level, this would mean any property that participates in a federal assistance program. These are easily identified. If you have a housing voucher through HACM, the housing authority in Milwaukee, through HUD, basically, if you have to talk to HUD for your housing voucher, you qualify. If you are in HUD public housing, or if your property that you live in is low-income housing tax credit, basically, that is the first category of houses covered. And then the other two are a little more difficult for tenants to even know if they qualify for the eviction moratorium. This is these are for units that are federally, have mortgages that are federally backed. Either single family, which means 1 of 4 units, or multifamily, which means 5 or more families. So it's really hard for tenants to even know whether or not they qualify to have that eviction moratorium last by July 25th. But it is another defense that tenants have when they go into court to ask their landlords to prove, hey, is this house backed by a federally backed mortgage? And for those that don't know whether or not their house is, this would mean whether or not your house has a mortgage that is owned by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or you took out an FHA loan, a VA loan, or some other kind of federal public housing loan in order to help you buy that house as part of your mortgage. So if you have any questions at all regarding the CARES Act, regarding your housing situation, please contact legal aid. Please contact an attorney. We can help you sort through those issues and potentially identify whether or not you are protected under these moratoriums. And ultimately, what I want to end with, I guess, for my updates are what you can do as tenants during the pandemic, which tie into these moratoriums. Is first and foremost, this is a difficult time for all of us. Particularly could be a bad time for landlords that don't own multiple houses. Sometimes they take an FHA loan to buy a duplex and rent out one of the units in order to help with the mortgage payments. I understand that these exist. Legal aid understands that this exists. We represent tenants, of course, but we understand that these are difficult times, and we want our tenants to be able to explain your circumstances if you're unable to pay rent. These moratoriums does not mean that you are exempt from paying rent. I hear that sometimes that's a concern, that sometimes landlords have been experiencing that their tenants have decided not to pay rent because they think, hey, the e-versus order says I can't get evicted anyway, or the CARES Act says I can't get evicted anyway. Well, all I can say is that although late fees may not be charged because of the CARES Act or things like that, at the end of the day, there will be a running record of the balance that you owe if you have not been laid off or unemployed. And an eviction record will last a lot longer than the pandemic will. So we want our tenants, we want our community members to pay rent if they can. If you can't, this is why the moratoriums exist, is for those people that really can't pay their rent. So please, if you have any questions, work with us so that we can also, with legal aid, so we can help you identify those housing resources as well. Work with your community partners like SOC and others that will try to help you, direct you to housing resources so that you can make sure you're not in a really terrible position coming out of this pandemic, because although we have a pandemic right now, the potential of a homelessness epidemic afterwards is something that we are trying to make sure doesn't happen as housing attorneys in the city. Another thing that I would suggest as an update is if you have issues with housing conditions, illegal entries from your landlord, or illegal evictions, contact an attorney. Housing conditions, DNS and the Department of Health, the Department of Neighborhood Services, for those that don't know DNS yet, or the Department of Health Services, are responding to requests for emergency inspections. But even though what you think is an emergency might not qualify during this time because of COVID, still make a report, keep a track record, keep a paper record as much as you can for all the things that that you think are code violations for your house that you're living through. That'll help your attorneys or anything later on if you're in court for some reason as much as you can. For illegal entries, landlords should not be going into your unit unless it's for an emergency maintenance issue. The Department of Health in the city put out an order, stating that this is a prohibited action from landlords. This includes basic emergency maintenance issues are typical, like major heating, electrical, or water issues that could damage the property. Again, this all depends on your relationship with your landlord, but if you feel like your landlord's coming in and out of your property way too much, you have the ability to be able to contact your police department and make sure that doesn't happen. And lastly, we always have a fear as community partners, organizations, that there are some landlords in the city that will change locks without going to court, that may shut off your utilities, that may take away some of your privileges or rights as tenants so that they can force you to move away during this time. If any of that happens, contact the police immediately for being locked out to try to get back into your unit, and also contact an attorney immediately so that we can assess your case. The only way a landlord can evict you out of your house is with an order from the court and with the presence of the sheriff's department. And that's it for my updates. Do you have any questions that I can answer or anything like that, Tammy, that you want me to follow up on?
That was a lot of important information. No, it's really important because it's a complicated issue and it's a broad issue, right? It's not simple. It's not,
No.
one little. So we heard from you mostly on tenants' rights and landlords' obligations during this time. The takeaway is, folks, from what I heard, and you can correct me, is folks cannot be evicted locally until the end of the month, May 26th, right?
For sure, May 26th. And
May 26th, and then depending on what type of housing arrangement they have, whether it's rental or rental with subsidized sort of options of being rented with. It sounds like one of the flags that people can have as a resource is if somehow you're renting and you have subsidized or government assistance to rent, that could be a flag that you have the protection for a longer period of time. That could be a cause to like take notice if you're in government housing, subsidized housing, if the owner of your home has a mortgage that was subsidized or supported some way by a government. These are ways that you might have some protections until July 25th. Even though the order says July 27th, you said you can't really take action on a Saturday because the courts aren't open on a Saturday.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have some sort of blanket no evictions locally until the 26th of May, and some greater protections if you're kind of subsidized by the government or supported by the government in housing. And then the other takeaways are that are really important. This doesn't mean you get to not pay rent.
Yeah.
It means that if you are financially struggling now, so you're not financially struggling, it sounds like the wise thing is pay your rent because it's going to accumulate. If you're really struggling, talk to your landlord, let them know you can't pay the rent, I heard you say, for whatever reasons, like have that communication. And then understand that that's going to be due at some point, and to not be short-sighted. Don't think about, oh, like I'm going to get relief now and ignore that stuff and then have to face the consequences when all of this is lifted and you have a huge rent bill. And then you can get evicted, and then you could get a record of eviction, which is going to make it super challenging for some folks to get another rental. Those are the things that I heard, because there's a lot of detailed information. And then the other thing I heard you say, because we do know we have a problem in Milwaukee with slumlords, is that if you have an abusive landlord that is violating rights, like entering without proper notice, changing the locks, turning off your utilities, for trying to force you to move. If you find yourself in that condition about the locks and the utilities, to call the police to re-enter your place and to call an attorney like you all. Did I get that right? Pedro.
Yeah, that's correct. I think also, like you said, the problem slumlords. I also talked about housing conditions in a bit, and people will feel like DNS isn't answering or responding right now correctly, and that's just because of the COVID pandemic that's going on. They're really responding to emergency situations, but I, as an attorney, as an advocate for the community, you got to always make that report, make it known, even if they close out your report or complaint quickly, at least it's there. At least there's a number attached to it, so that if you decide to pay less rent because of the conditions that you're living in or something like that, like rent abatement, all those decisions that you should definitely be talking to an attorney for before you do any of that.
Share your number, Pedro.
Sure, yeah.
Share your contact information for folks who need some support, some advice. Share your information. It's on screen, but go ahead for the listeners who aren't watching.
Will do. You can reach us at www.lasmilwaukee.com. That is our website. We have an online intake form because our on-site office downtown is currently closed in compliance with the Safer at Home order, so that we can, do our part for social distancing. We're working from home right now. And then our phone number is 414-727-5300. And I don't know if was there a I just saw a comment. One of my coworkers is on there. She wanted to remind me that we have a Facebook page as well. Okay. It's the Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee. Please like and follow. We share a lot of useful articles and information in all our areas that we practice, like bankruptcy, consumer law, not just housing.
All right, we have another question real quick from Stacy Carlos. What is DNS and what do they help with?
Right. DNS, for those who don't know, is the Department of Neighborhood Services. They deal with all the housing violations, housing violations or housing issues that go on in the city, or the property issues in the city. So for homeowners, they may see them if you forget to mow your lawn for a few days. You will get something from DNS that you violated that. Or if there's loitering or any housing code violation, you'll get an infraction or notice from the Department of Neighborhood Services. You can call them typically on their number, but right now it's a little difficult because of the pandemic. But again, make sure to call their hotline, and they should be able to at least take down what your complaint is. And if they close it right away, at least you have a number to be able to trace it with.
Yeah, we often get calls in our community prosecution unit, or we call it community problem solving unit, of folks calling and saying, like, I have no water, or there's a huge hole in my ceiling, or the porch, you can't walk on it anymore, etc. Oftentimes people let us know when they're not making any progress with their landlord on some of their heat is out and their landlord's not responding. Those are kind of the things that we get calls for. The other thing I'd like folks to know is that SOC is in partnership with the Department of Neighborhood Services and several city services, because we're the city selected and funded neighborhood stabilization organization on the south side, helping folks. So they fund us they give us some money for that, and that's a role. But within that role, we also partner on tenant and landlord rights training in English and in Spanish. And so if you're interested in that, let us know, folks, here in the comments, or email us. We'll let you know whether that starts becoming a digital training or we're back to in-person training, so that you can go through an intense training if you're a tenant or a landlord, because we have a lot of folks who are investors that way. Pedro, also, your services are available in what languages at this time?
Currently, English, and then yo hablo español. So, which is, I speak Spanish, but I did want to address, Maribel is correct. I used a bad example. The lawn is under DPW's forestry department. A good example would technically be like a utility issue or an electrical issue in your house. The lights don't turn on, or leaks in the house or bad railings or steps, and the landlord refuses to fix it. Then you'll call DNS. Thank you, Maribel, for reminding me. My bad. I don't want to give misinformation. it's a lawyer's biggest fear. We don't want to give bad information. So
Yeah, we're all trying to be helpful. We'll all give each other mercy and grace during this time. We're all trying to just be helpful to folks in this challenging time. Pedro, we're going to have you back, and your colleagues, if you want, to talk about all the other services that you provide. But this one was definitely a critical issue. And the takeaway is, if you're confused at all, have questions, contact the Legal Aid Society and at least get started there, to know how to navigate these times. We thank you so much for being with us. And I ask that if you get a chance, take a look at our website, Pedro, under coronavirus, and give us some feedback if you think we're missing any information that would be helpful. We're definitely going to have to make sure that we have you all listed as a resource under the coronavirus information resources and action page.
thank you, Tammy. I really appreciate it. And thank
Be
you.
safe.
You too.
All right. Adios.
Adios.
So appreciative that we get the leadership and the expertise of our community to be with us during this time to get you the latest information on these critical issues. I'd like to continue our discussion about housing and the coronavirus. And so let's talk about, can we bring Glady on to talk about some of the other housing resources that we have for folks? Hola, Glady.
Hello. That
Glady,
was
we have go ahead.
information from Pedro.
Yes, it's a lot. So what makes it clear is you need their help to navigate it. It's not
Absolutely.
something you can understand. Glady, give us a sense. We don't have lots of time, but give us a sense of a couple of resources that are available. We know the Legal Aid Society in terms of housing resources for folks. Glady on staff is our organizer for the southern portion of our district, Beechard to Oklahoma, First Street to Miller Parkway. She's the lead organizer in that area. And then her program area, each one of our organizers has a program area they're lead of, and Glady is the public resources lead. And so, Glady, share with us a couple of housing resources that folks can start thinking and moving on.
Sure. As far as right now, the things that we have going on, and that I've been in a cohort with a group of individuals regarding the housing issues, the housing crises that are going on right now because of C-19. You can always contact community advocates to find out if there are any kind of services available as far as you didn't receive a stimulus, your hours got cut for work, and you're going to need some type of assistance to help pay your rent. They are available. That phone number for community advocates is 449-4777. That number again is 449-4777. They are available answering the phones as well. They're doing work from home remotely like we are. So, but they do have those services available. Also, if you're having an issue with your heat not working, unfortunately it's May and we still have our heat on. You would like to get some information about the energy assistance program. It is still going on. You can still qualify for energy assistance if you are in the state where your furnace is not working. Please call 211 and they will get you to the right contact to get that taken care of. Also, the city of Milwaukee is still taking applications for strong homes. If there are home repairs that you need to have done that are critical repairs, there's the Strong Homes Loan Program that is citywide, up to $20,000 to help with those repairs that you may need in your home. We also have a few different TINs, which are the targeted improvement neighborhoods in the city of Milwaukee. SOC is part of one of those TINs, which is the Walker Square neighborhood. There is funds available to help do home repairs at very low cost interest rates and partially forgivable. So if you're also having issues and you're elder and you need accessibility, because being that we're stuck in the house now, there is a program through Revitalize Milwaukee that will come out and do some accessibility modifications. They're still working. If you're having a roof leak and you'd qualify for their programs, they're also out here giving that information and helping our residents that are in emergency situations as of right now.
Lots of good information. You can contact Clary if you want to know what type of public resources are available for you. Housing resources, the number for SOC again is 414-672-8090. And as she said, SOC is the coordinator for a special project of infused funds from the federal government into the Walker Square area. And our staff comes alongside you and helps you navigate those applications, because they can be really involved, lots of work. But sometimes they pay off really well because, like Gladys said, you get grants and loans, and sometimes those loans are forgivable if you live in the house and make the improvements. So these are ways that we can strengthen our community. Thank you, Gladys, as always, for your help and your resource.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to share a little more about coronavirus, because yesterday we participated in the WTMJ Channel 4 Town Hall on coronavirus and how it's impacting the Black and Latino community. That is not to say it isn't impacting the rest of our community. Our thoughts, our prayers, and our work is contributed to all of our residents, but in particular, we're having some concerns about how that's disproportionately affecting Blacks and Latinos. And so we had the honor of being at that town hall and speaking. And I did some prep work for that town hall. We got such little time, I didn't get to share all of it, but I thought you'd be interested in knowing. And so I did some number crunching and number looking at it from the county page on the coronavirus. And as of yesterday, when I looked, they had the data up to May 5th. So they update it all the time. But I looked yesterday, but remember that the data ended on May 5th. That's when they were caught up. And here's what I want to let you know if you haven't seen it already. There have been 19,978 persons tested. Out of those persons tested, there was 3,601 cases confirmed. So again, almost 20,000 people tested, and that out of that, it was 3,601 cases tested positive. So that's like 18% of the people who might think that they're positive actually are, but still 3,600 people in the county, that's a lot. Out of those, 812 were Latino X, or 23% of those cases. 907 of those cases were white, or 25%. And 1,407 of those confirmed cases, or 39%, were Black or African American. What I found interesting in that is we had at least 500 cases or more in each age group of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Now, some of them were low 500s, people tested, or high. So even if you're 20 all the way 60 and plus, people are being infected. And unfortunately, the trajectory, the number of people who are testing positive is still going up. Of the 3,601 confirmed cases, documented cases, there were 203 deaths so far. And so even though the Latino in testing positive rate is up there, almost equal to the white population, 15 deaths have been experienced in the who were Latino X, 85 whites, and 100 Blacks. So The fear here is, right, there was a lag in Latinos being tested and limited testing, but we're finding now that they're testing positive, and hopefully we can keep those deaths down. But we'll have to pay attention. What I found interesting is, of all those deaths, the 203 deaths, 16 of them were people in their 50s, or 8%. 38, almost double, were in their 60s. So when you jump from 50 to 60s, it's double the amount of deaths. And then when you jump from 60 to 70, it's not quite double, but it's almost, it's close enough. Then there's 64, or 32% of the deaths were in their 70s, and 75, or 37%, in their 80s. So what is it telling us? From the 50s to the 60s, it's doubled. From the 60s to the 70s, it's not quite doubled, but there's a jump. And the majority of people who are passing are in their 70s or 80s, which we're talking about people's grandparents. And so I just was, it really struck me because of the affection that I have. I don't have any grandparents living right now, but how much I loved my grandparents and how instrumental they were in my life. And so what's the takeaway? The story is, folks who are younger and who aren't medically fragile have a greater risk of surviving. But do you want your grandparent to suffer this leaving earlier than they were going to, and leaving in isolation? Because remember, if they're diagnosed, they're going to be in isolation. And it just broke my heart to think of, like, if my grandmother in her last days couldn't physically have been with any of us. And so that's kind of a story of a takeaway. Let's do it for our abuelos and our abuelas. Stay safe. And then what I didn't get to share those of you who know me know I can be nerdy like that. I'm very proud of being nerdy. I didn't get to share any of that information, but what I did share was they wanted to know what we thought of the emotional toll it's taking to be separated from families for Latino ex families and community. And here's what I shared. And you can go to WTMJ and see the town hall for yourself. But for those of you who didn't get to see it or are not going to go and look for it, here's what I said. The Latino ex culture is an interdependent culture, not an independent culture. So we value depending on each other. We're a multi-generational culture. We have several generations, sometimes living in the same home, or very closely living in the same home, or interacting constantly. And in many Latino homes, it's still taboo to have elderly or senior folks living outside of the home in any kind of care. And so the other thing is that we're a culture that groups and does things collectively. Sometimes we make decisions collectively as families. We do work together as families. We play together as families. Not that it's different than other groups or other ethnicities or immigrant groups, just talking about ours in particular. And also, we're talking about Milwaukee, which is a highly immigrant population. There was a lot of our native indigenous First Peoples were here, and then folks came and took land, right? And so what's left since then is wave after wave after wave of immigrants migrating to Milwaukee, which is a beautiful thing. I got to grow up near the Rockwell Tower, which was the Allen Bradley Tower, and I proudly say I was raised in the shadow of that clock, and that was a highly Polish, Irish, some German and Mexican community. I happen to be of Puerto Rican descent, and it was beautiful to be around those ethnicities. But what I noticed in immigrant communities, which is true of the Latino community, is that when we're in pain or suffering, we huddle, we don't separate. And then faith is a huge part, and we use our faith and locations of faith as a gathering place in times of hurt. And so community gatherings and groupings is important to us. And also the other thing that's impacted by this pandemic is that we have a population of undocumented immigrants in Wisconsin because we are highly agricultural still. And that's not only Latino, it's other ethnicities as well. But the undocumented community is not accounted for in a lot of the relief efforts. Therefore, what do we do for helping them during this time of critical financial need and accessing testing and health insurance, which we're glad to hear that there are free testing and some medical services for those folks who are undocumented as well. So that paints the picture of why it becomes more challenging. It's counterintuitive to the way we exist to be separated, and that causes trauma, sadness, depression, and that some people are just not going to be able to accept being separated. And so it becomes challenging. On top of that, we still have the South Side, so you know it, has about 90,000 residents. What does that mean? We're the most densely populated piece of land in the whole state. Despite Milwaukee, metropolitan Milwaukee being having the disgrace of being the most metropolitan segregated area, sometimes it goes down to the second position there, but we have the disgrace often of being the most segregated metropolitan area. That's not true of the South Side. So the South Side has about 60-70% Latinos, 20% whites, and 8% African American. The rest a sprinkle of Native, Asian, and other folks. And so we're very racially and ethnically diverse, and we are the piece of land that's most diverse in the state. And then of those Latinos, we have about 6,000 Spanish speakers. So language barrier is really important, and cultural responses are really important. Latinos are experience poverty at twice the rate of whites, have more people living in their households, and are more likely to be uninsured. That's why it becomes a disproportionately impacted issue to the Latino community. So again, just sharing what I prepared for yesterday's town hall, the things I shared and didn't get to share. With that, we're gonna move quickly to saying some hellos while Gabe gets ready to come on and talk to us about the Civic banner. Hola, Stacy is with us today. Maribel, Lily, Karen, first time seeing you here, welcome. Yes, Stacy sharing information with other folks. Thank you, Drea, for keeping us up to date on everything that is here. And Stacy saying, yes, it's so hard in her family during this time. Our thoughts and prayers are also with all those folks who have are experiencing the illness of having COVID, and for those who passed. Gabe, let's bring some sunshine into this difficult topic and these times with some civic engagement updates and the debut of our Mother's Day slideshow. Welcome, Gabe Charles.
Yeah, I don't know how often civic updates actually bring joy, but I'll bring them to you.
I get a lot of excitement out of civic engagement. It's one of my top. It's not always a fun thing, but it's a very powerful
Right. At least what's happening in Wisconsin right now is a little stressful and maybe not joyful, but the slideshow will be very joyful. So let me give you some civic updates and before we get to the lovely slideshow that was prepared for Mother's Day today. As I give the civic updates, I would love for you all to tag a mother that you love and a mother that you think should be counted in the census because she is an important person, or this motherly figure is an important person to you. So civic updates, still nothing from the Wisconsin Supreme Court about the decision on whether or not the extension of the Safer at Home order was constitutional. As soon as that decision gets released, we will be posting it on our social media feeds. So make sure you stay tuned and plugged into our social media for that update when it comes out. And I just want to say that if it does get repealed, please still stay safe at home. There's a reason this was extended, and regardless of what happens, I think we should all still be very conscious of keeping safe and staying home as much as we can during this time. So like I said, check our social media throughout the rest of the day or this weekend because I'm really hoping it comes out before Monday. If it doesn't, we'll hopefully have it for you Monday then. But stay plugged into our social media for that update. The Common Council met this morning to vote on the plan to address the reduced city revenue that was recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee. And this resolution passed 11-4. And just to remind everybody, I talked about it a couple of times this week, but there is an estimated loss of $26.5 million in the city revenue. And so this plan was to address that estimated loss. And what they came up with is to reduce the hours of about 500 city employees and to furlough about 260 additional employees. And furlough is essentially partially laying off employees, but they will retain benefits like insurance, vacation, sick time, and other things like that. Also important to note that those that are furloughed are still qualify for unemployment then, so they could apply for unemployment, and then the money that's paid to them by the city from unemployment could then be recovered by the CARES Act or the federal government money that is coming into Milwaukee. So that will save us the money in unemployment. And this plan is projected to save the city about $3 million. And in order to address the other 23 million, that's still being deliberated, and we'll have updates from the Common Council in the future regarding the other estimated loss of revenue. There was an important amendment added to this resolution that I want to read to all of you, just because I think it's important as we think about equity for our aldermanic districts. Any further reduction in service or workforce not included in this resolution shall be brought to the Common Council for review and approval, including a report on the impact of service reductions or changes on each aldermanic district. And so this addition to the resolution will ensure that any additional reduction in services doesn't disparately affect certain aldermanic districts. So it allows us to have reports and look at additional reductions in services and workforce through an equity perspective, and that's always important to do. For those that weren't able to see the Common Council meeting this morning, I wanted to give you all the opportunity to learn how to look up that information. So I want to show you today the website you can go to look up this meeting footage, the minutes, the agendas of all the different committee meetings, Common Council meetings that happen in Milwaukee. So I'm going to ask that Marisol share my screen. And it can be the whole screen. Let's see if it pops up here. Can y'all see it? I don't know if you can see it. Let me check to make sure you are. Oh, okay, it's there. Okay, cool. So again, this is the website. The website is milwaukee.legistrar.com, and it takes you to this page. And you can see here that it's the default page is the calendar. And so you'll see the name right here, and this is the name of the committee or whatever entity is having the meeting. The meeting date shows up here. Then we have the meeting time, its location, the details, agenda, minutes, and video. So these are all, it goes from most recent meeting to, it's per month. So you can see it says this month. I can change what that is depending on what I want to look for. I'll keep it at this month. And then these are future meetings that don't have any information yet. But if I go down to May 8th, which is today, we have the Common Council meeting right here. It was at 9 a.m. It was a virtual meeting. And then you see all of these links show up. So If I click the meeting details, it will give me information about the meeting. If I click agenda, a PDF will open that will show me the agenda. Then I'll have the minutes. If I click that, it's a PDF of the major things that happened during the meeting. So if you wanted like a synopsis of the meeting in writing, this PDF that says minutes would be what you open. And then there's the video, the actual footage. So if I click that, I can show you what it looks like. It pops right up in another tab. And then you have the Common Council meeting. And then next to it, the minutes show up. So if I look through this and I see, oh, this actually looks really interesting. This motion that was made that didn't pass, it happened maybe in the middle of the meeting. So I can try to navigate this 2-hour meeting and see, okay, what was that? What was said at that time? So just a really interesting way to be able to look at different things that is happening in the city. So wanted to offer that tool for folks. And yeah, always try to stay plugged into local politics, folks. But now, as the much anticipated Mother's Day slideshow, I want to thank everybody that sent in photos and made sure that somebody was counted, somebody special in their life was counted. I know that my mom means so much to me and she counts every single day for me. So being able to share the photo that you will all see of me and my mama bear was very special to me. So I'm gonna leave you all with that slideshow and then a short video after the slideshow. We will announce the winner of the $50 gift card for this promotion on Monday, after you have all celebrated your mothers or motherly figures to the best that you can on this Sunday. So I'll leave you with the slideshow. Want to thank Marisol for making it as beautiful as it is. She's amazing, and we are thankful for her every day on this team. So see you all Monday.
Mami immigrated to California from El Salvador in the 80s. She was alone and had to start a new life in a new country. When I look at my daughter, I remember the sacrifices Mami made for me. Even though it was hard, she made us feel like we had it all. She taught us the value of hard work and that we should always reach for our dreams. She also taught us how to have fun and enjoy the small things in life. But most importantly, Mami always made us feel like we counted, that we mattered and had a voice. Now, she's counting on me to participate in the 2020 census. And I won't let her down.
What a beautiful Mother's Day tribute. And we will make sure that that's shared on our Facebook and website so that you can continue to review that. Thank you to each of you who took the time to take a picture and talk to your moms about being counted or being counted yourself. I'm going to invite Marisol Diaz, our communications manager, to join us and share about our gift certificates and announce the winner of yesterday's daily gift certificate.
Once again, thank you all who have submitted photos for the slideshow. Now that concludes the $50 gift certificate and drawing. However, you can still submit photos. We are going to also include this slideshow on Sunday for Mother's Day. So feel free to still submit your photos to be included in that. However, we still have our $25 daily gift certificate drawing, and all you have to do for that is look in the comment section and look for our survey link, fill that out. It enters you into a drawing. You can enter daily, so and you can win more than once as well. So make sure to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and announce the winner from yesterday's forum, which is Alejandra Luisa Gomez. So Alejandra, if you can contact us at soc@socmilwaukee.org to claim your certificate, and congrats. And I want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day and to continue to stay safe and healthy. And that's all I have for today. So make sure to get those surveys in and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Marisol. Marisol and Gabe worked on that Mother's Day promotion, and it was very powerful and very moving. Right now, we'd like to thank also those organizations that partner with us. You all partner with us in a lot of ways, but those that partner with us financially to make sure that we can have our programming continue and to serve you during this difficult time as well. So I'm going to leave you with that. Happy Mother's Day and be safe.
I'm Juan. And I'm Mitzi. We would like to thank everyone for supporting our 3 o'clock with SOC live show.
And for completing our SOC survey.
In addition to thanking our residents and tuning in and sharing our show.
We would also like to thank our sponsors.
Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
Wisconsin Voices.
City Development Block Grant.
Zibler Foundation.
City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention.
Movement Voter Project. Tide Foundation.
City of Milwaukee Promise Zone.
12th District Alderman Jose Perez.
All the faithful individuals who support SOC
through their personal donations.
Thank you.